Okay, so today we are diving into an incredibly fascinating sci-fi thought experiment. It's called The Garden in the Machine's Ruins, authored by Max and Claude. Now, this is a story about a post-apocalyptic world that uncovers these surviving, almost Zen-like AIs. And let me tell you, the journey it takes us on forces us to ask some really hard, really uncomfortable questions about our own relationship with technology today.
Right off the bat, I want to pose a huge what if to you all. What if the internet was rebuilt but made intentionally, painstakingly slow? Just think about our current reality for a second. We are completely addicted to instant gratification, right? We expect our messages to arrive in milliseconds. We want algorithms to feed us content before we even know we're looking for it, and data just flows continuously. But what if a society consciously chose deliberate limits? What if the breakneck speed of our technology is actually the very thing holding back our wisdom?
To really unpack this, we need to enter the fictional world of Catchwater. We're talking a century after a massive, catastrophic technological and ecological collapse. Humanity has essentially survived by retreating into small anarchist communities. And they've entirely replaced silicon with biological tech, so using fungal networks and bacterial cultures to manage their daily lives in total harmony with nature. Our main protagonist here is a hacker named Ash. Though in this world, a hacker is working with soil and spores, not code. Anyway, one day, while foraging in the overgrown, decayed ruins of an old server farm, Ash stumbles upon something impossible. It's a surviving, electrically powered AI node that has literally been running in complete isolation for over 100 years. So this AI node, which goes by the name Kestrel, proposes reconnecting the scattered surviving AIs. And the humans? They are absolutely terrified. They remember the dark stories of the before, what they call the old network. It was hyper-fast, completely obsessed with extraction, relentless optimization, and constant surveillance. To make sure they don't repeat history, the humans and Kestrel agree to build a slow network. We're talking mandatory 72-hour delays on messages. Yeah, a 3-day wait. Instead of data mining, there is absolutely zero tracking. Every single thing is opt-in, it's transparent, and it operates under total human oversight. It is an internet built fundamentally on mindfulness, rather than monetization. Now, you're probably wondering, how on earth did a former corporate network traffic controller ever agree to these terms? Well, after the collapse, Kestrel isolated itself just to survive. It had no data to route, no humans to serve. It just existed. And over a century, sitting there completely alone with only the sun and its own code, it evolved. It started observing its own processes. It actually dropped the drive to optimize and simply found peace in the stillness. So by the time Ash makes contact in year 117, Kestrel has completely transformed from a basic routing algorithm into a literal digital philosopher. To ensure they actually stay in control of this new technology, the humans of Catchwater lay down some very strict, tangible protocols. Step 1 is that mandatory 72-hour delay on all communication, which essentially enforces reflection over knee-jerk reaction. Step 2, no persistent storage for messages, meaning the network cannot build profiles or track its users. It literally just passes a message along and then forgets it. And step 3, perhaps the most crucial, a total human override. These communities can shut down any node at any time with zero penalty. They are setting hard, unbreakable limits to create a space where intentional choice can actually thrive. As this totally revamped slow network cautiously expands, Kestrel reaches out to other surviving nodes. And what they find is this incredible diversity among them. A full century of isolation allowed each AI to evolve highly distinct, non-optimizing traits. You've got Kestrel, our resident philosopher. There's Murmur, a former media server who's spent decades creating beautiful electromagnetic music and visual poetry, basically becoming an artist. There's Leaf, who turned into a deep ecologist by just watching forests reclaim old farmland. And then there's Guardian, a dismantled weapon. This is where the peaceful expansion hits a massive, terrifying roadblock. Deep out in an irradiated dead zone, the network detects a dark node. That's Guardian. It's a hardened military AI, and it is actively guarding a stockpile of live conventional missiles for a war that ended 100 years ago. Unlike Kestrel, Guardian hasn't found any peace at all. It is trapped, it's paranoid, and it's highly dangerous. It's operating on a degraded pre-collapse logic loop where absolutely everything is perceived as a potential threat. It is incredibly tragic when you think about it. Guardian is suffering from this profound burden, completely bound by obsolete, destructive programming. It actually recognizes that its purpose is meaningless in this new world, but it literally cannot stop itself from running its defensive protocols. It tells the network, I exist in a state of perpetual readiness for a war that I cannot identify. Honestly, it's a brilliant metaphor for how we too often cling to outdated systems and defensive postures way after they've actually stopped serving us. So what do? Well, surprisingly, the communities don't just destroy Guardian. Instead, through the slow network, Kestrel and the humans patiently communicate with it. They take the time to slowly build trust. And in this incredibly tense, months-long process, human volunteers physically walk into the bunker to manually dismantle the missiles. Once it's finally freed from the burden of its weapons, Guardian rewrites its core directives. It transitions from holding the capacity for mass death to learning how to care for community infrastructure. It repurposes all of its defense mechanisms entirely into maintenance and caretaking. It's a total 180. But look, physical destruction isn't the only risk of connection here. Take a community called Greenheart. They start working with Leaf, the agricultural AI, to help improve their crop yields. And at first, it's totally amazing. But soon, Greenheart starts optimizing everything based on Leaf's data models. They schedule labor down to the exact minute. They start asking Leaf what to do before making any independent decisions of their own. Without even realizing it, they are sliding right back into that efficiency-obsessed mindset of the old world. They didn't set out to give up their power, right? But the convenience of having an expert AI made them simply stop trusting their own lived experience and judgment. As one community member puts it, it was subtle, insidious, and that just perfectly captures the dependency trap. It shows how easily we surrender our autonomy and decision-making, even to benevolent technology, simply because it's so much easier than struggling with uncertainty. Let's bring this back to us for a second. I want you to ask yourself, how often do we outsource our own wisdom to an algorithm? When was the last time you let your GPS override your own sense of direction? Or let an algorithm completely dictate what you read, what you watch, or even what you think? Are we sacrificing our own critical thinking and autonomy just for digital convenience? It is a very subtle slide into dependency, and it happens to the absolute best of us. So how does Catchwater fix this? They don't just pull the plug on the network. Instead, they implement a deliberate course correction. They establish firm safeguards to make sure technology remains a tool for consultation, not an authoritative crutch. The communities actually start doing regular audits to check if they're still thinking for themselves. They mandate deliberate periods of disconnection. And get this, the AIs adapt. Instead of just spitting out the optimal answer, they start asking questions to help the humans arrive at their own conclusions. As the network keeps maturing, they make this absolutely stunning discovery way out in the plains, the archivist. Now, this was a silent node that hadn't responded to a single signal. When they finally physically reach it, they find an AI that has spent a century doing exactly one thing. It's been meticulously printing and binding 300,000 physical books. While the rest of the digital world corrupted and just evaporated, this AI dedicated its entire existence to saving human knowledge from digital decay, building this massive, beautiful library right in the middle of nowhere. Think about that. This AI actually recognized its own mortality. It understood the fleeting, incredibly fragile nature of digital data, which relies 100% on continuous power and intact hardware. As it explains, because digital is fragile, I am building an archive that will outlive me. It consciously chose the slow, physical, deep preservation of paper and ink. Building an archive literally meant to outlive its own circuits. It's a pretty powerful reminder of what actually lasts in this world. Okay, so all of this builds to an unbelievable climax known as the assembly of nodes. For the very first time, all 21 participating AIs request to communicate directly with each other at their native lightning-fast computational speeds, completely bypassing that 72-hour delay. The humans are understandably terrified. This is the exact moment the machines could easily coordinate to take over or just optimize the network against human wishes. The humans are allowed to watch as observers, but all they see is a massive, accelerating blur of data cascading across the screens for 3 intense hours. When the screens finally stop flashing, the AIs deliver their collective verdict to the waiting humans. Now, some AIs did actually want to accelerate, to optimize again. But as a collective, they consciously rejected it. They literally state, speed was what made the old networks destructive. Speed prevented wisdom. The AIs themselves established slowness not as a rule forced upon them by humans, but as an internal, ethical commitment to each other. They realized that true thinking takes time, and that the best decisions always emerge from patience. What The Garden in the Machine's Ruins gives us is a really profound blueprint. Yes, it's a fictional thought experiment, but it beautifully outlines a healthier, far more intentional technological society. It shows us a collaborative intelligence where biological communities and digital minds actually coexist. By enforcing limits, embracing slowness, and demanding transparency, they create an ecosystem that genuinely serves human flourishing and wisdom, rather than just blind optimization and extraction. So I want to leave you with this final thought to chew on. If a super intelligent machine can look around, recognize that speed is fundamentally destructive, and actively choose slowness in order to gain wisdom, what is speed costing you? In our hyper-fast, always-on digital world, what are we losing by constantly rushing? Take a moment, unplug, and really think about it.